And so when I wake up, I have a really hard time waking up because, like, I'd say maybe 70% of the time I like can't move when I'm waking up. And so there's like this gradual, like, all right, let's start moving some fingers. Can you wiggle some toes? Like, all of those things.
I would just throw a bucket of water on you. That'll
Yeah.
wake you up.
Well, here's the thing too. So cold is a trigger. So like only warm water. Only warm water. Because the second I get
Okay.
cold or anything like that, it's like gone. Can't move. But I like couldn't speak and be like, I can't move. I was just like,
Oh my god, that's scary.
yeah, my mom was like not. My poor mom has been through so, and here's the thing. It was on her birthday. So
Oh
let me
no.
like document and formally apologize, Mom. I am so sorry. Yeah, so when I fell off the ladder, I do think it was more EDS because you're not aware of your spatial. You have really bad spatial awareness, and like I was already running into walls and like bumping into
Oh.
like doorways and like just always super clumsy.
Pro tip to anyone out there: don't fall off ladders.
Don't it? Who knows what it'll cause? Like, I was like super pessimistic, and I was like, screw the world.
Understandable.
Yeah, like I was like, screw the world. I have all these issues. Like, no one should have to deal with this many things at this age. Like, I hate this. Like, I wasn't like I hate my life, like all like melodramatic, but I felt very like this is just unfair, and like I
Yeah.
didn't want to deal with any of it. And so I ended up connecting with a disability coach. And prior to this, and I even told him in our like consult call, I was like, listen, I don't know if I believe in this stuff. Like I go to therapy weekly. I deal with it. Like I talk about my feelings. I don't know that you can really help me. I just want to like at least attempt to put effort into myself. So I'm doing this consultation call. And he was like, I get it. Like I'm not going to fix you. I'm not going to like try and like help you with your feelings, you know, that sort of thing. He's like, my goal is just to like get you to a better place with your disability in terms of like acceptance. I tell everyone, I'm like, yeah, it glows in the dark. Like I just fit it into every conversation. If the wheelchair comes up at all, I'm just like, it glows in the dark, so it's fine. Like, it's fine. It glows in the dark.
So, so thanks to Charlie, you become a badass bitch.
I would say so. I would say so, definitely. Yeah. So, thanks, Charlie. Yeah.
That's a pretty good review to put under his page.
Yeah. Yeah. Turned into badass bitch. You know, how to answer questions because so many people, what's wrong with you? Like, what happened? Like, are you okay? Can I pray for you? And it's like,
Too late.
if you want to, but like, yeah, yeah, a little too late. Thanks. Like, I'm good. I have always jokingly told my friends, like, you know, don't eat at Chick-fil-A because, hello, like, they don't support LGBTQ plus anything.
Hmm.
And I was like, but if you do, Venmo me because we'll call it the queer tax. And literally, I have friend, and I joked about that was like a high school Annie thing, and I joked about it with them, but still to this day, I will randomly get like $2 or $3 here or there from like random people, and they'll just like caption it like queer tax. And I'm like, I love this. Like, we're cool with this. Like, okay, so and so just had Chick-fil-A, but it's okay. I'll forgive it this time because I got a couple bucks out of it. Yeah, so I have these bat wings right here. And that's what I so lovingly call it because my well, so I'll backtrack. So and I had gotten to a point where I had seen like two different cardiologists and both of them were like, I've heard of patients like you. And I'm like, great. So can you treat me? And they're like, no, like I'm not equipped for that. And so I was just like, so my doctor was like, all right, time to get on. He literally was like, time to put on your big girl panties. You're going to learn how to like access this thing yourself. And I was just like,
Okay.
No.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, to my one Joe Suits. I'm Joe Suits. I'll be giving mic to Annie. Annie is a Bachelor of Arts with a degree in painting. She's an advocate for a shitload of diseases that she deals with. She also loves the stock market, but since it is my podcast, I like to talk about disabilities and advocacy instead. So a very weird question we're going to start out of the gate is, how did you sleep last night?
I slept horribly. Uh, I, due to multiple medications, multiple conditions, sleep is not my friend, at least at night. The second the sun decides to rise, my body's like, cool, we're gonna shut down now. And I can sleep super easy. But yeah, last night in particular, I somehow was able to force myself to sleep. I've been like working on it specifically for this and our early start because yes, 2 p.m. is an early start for me. But around 4, I just woke up and I felt all my bones in my body and everything just like thumps, and I just am hyper aware of like every sensation in my body. So that was super fun and was up until I don't know, like 8 or 9, and then was able to sleep again until maybe 20 minutes ago. So, yeah, super fun.
I mean, I hope I didn't like interrupt your sleep too. I don't want to be that person.
No, 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 no. It's okay. I've been trying to like work around or work towards a better sleep schedule because, of course, now that COVID's over, all my doctors want to see me in person. They only schedule for super early mornings and like after lunch appointments. And so, got to get there. So, it works out.
Is it that your sleep pattern is just really horrible right now, or is it more that your diseases are preventing you from sleeping?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. So, my like I'd say like my main rare disease is hypokalemic periodic paralysis. It's a fun one. When my potassium, like my blood serum potassium level gets too low, I experience paralysis. And it can be full body, it can be right now it's like strictly my legs, but it can be full body, it can be just an arm, it picks and chooses what it wants to do. And it also there's really like weird triggers for it. And one of the triggers is sleep, which is like
Huh,
not fair
that's a
because,
mind fuck.
yeah, because everyone sleeps. And so when I wake up, I have a really hard time waking up because, like, I'd say maybe 70% of the time I like can't move when I'm waking up. And so there's like this gradual, like, all right, let's start moving some fingers. Can you wiggle some toes? Like, all of those things. And so it does take me a long time usually to wake up, but thankfully right now my potassium's stable. I haven't had a paralysis episode in a good few months. I'm saying that now, and probably like tomorrow I'll be like,
No, don't say that.
yeah. So it's between that and then also having gastroparesis is another condition that I have, and so I don't absorb nutrients well at all. And so my B12 is low, my iron's low, like all of those things that help you feel energized and like rested and like a normal human. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And then also just, okay, I can't sleep at night, so I'm going to sleep when I can, which means if I sleep from like 3 p.m. to, I don't know, like 9 o'clock that night, then it's like, I'm not going to be going to sleep then until like 2 a.m., if not later. So it's just lots of different aspects of a lot of different conditions just like not mixing well together.
Crazy though when you were talking about the paralysis that you just wake up awake, but you can't like move yourself. Does that make it hard for you to like stay awake? Because if I wake up and I don't move, or like if I just keep my eyes closed, like like you're in a sleepy state for you to go back to bed.
Yeah,
So are you in there, or are you just like hyper aware?
yeah, I it kind of depends. Like if I if my mom comes in and wakes me up, because I live at home with my mom, she's my main caretaker, because paralysis can kind of just strike whenever it wants to. I was living on my own, going to school fine, all of those things before I had like my big sick moment is what I call it, that like kind of triggered everything. And she had to start coming up and helping me and stuff. But like moving back home has been helpful because like I can just be like in the middle of doing something, because another fun trigger is exercise, movement. And it's like, this just isn't fair. But so, yeah, sometimes waking up, I'll just not be able to move and just be like, I'm just really comfortable though. Like, I can't move, but like, I was in a great, like, cozy position. So maybe I could just sleep a little bit longer. And if I sleep a little bit longer, maybe I'll like wake up next time and be okay. But if there's like an appointment or like an interview or like something that I have to do, it's like, all right, alarms every like 2 minutes to get going and like, all right, let's focus on wiggling
I
those
seen your
toes.
stories.
Yeah, yeah. I have to set multiple alarms, like super high energy songs to wake me up, get me going. My mom will sometimes come in and like, we have like a bendy straw and she'll like give me like Dr. Pepper and be like, wake up, like it's time to go.
I would just throw a bucket of water on you. That'll
Yeah.
wake you up.
Well, here's the thing too. So cold is a trigger. So like only warm water. Only warm water. Because the second I get
Okay.
cold or anything like that, it's like gone. Can't move. So it's like what 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 am I to do?
Let's talk about your big sick day. I did want to let you know that I know a lot about you that I
Oh,
haven't revealed yet, but you've been revealing a lot.
okay.
So like I want to impress you with my knowledge of you.
Okay.
But so I know that at the age of 25, you had to move with your parent, with your mom because you needed caregiving.
Mm-hmm.
You need caregiving need that you mentioned before. So let's talk about your big sick day that required you to move back home at the age of 25.
Yeah, so uh gonna take you back to I think it was 2019, spring of 2019. And I was a student at an art school. I'm not going to name the school, but it's like clear in a lot of my website bios, that sort of thing. So if people want to know, they can find it. But through no fault of anyone else's but my own clumsiness, I was a painting major, and so I was like de-installing an installation piece that I had done, and I was up on a ladder, and I'm already not like a put together person. And I fall over flat surfaces, all of those things. This was pre wheelchair, pre anything other than like GI issues and like anxiety and depression that they like slap the label on everyone. And I fall off this ladder like only from like 2 steps down. So it wasn't like horrible, but it wasn't fantastic because I'm holding this painting and in my head I'm like, all right, this is the most important thing to me right now. My grade depends on
Mm-hmm.
this. And so I
Yeah.
don't use my hands to catch myself. I just like free fall. And I end up landing directly on my right hip. And I just kind of lay there. And in our installation spaces, it's just like concrete and white walls. And you're in this little like
Mm-hmm.
alcove. And so like no one finds me, no one sees me. And so I end up having like to collect myself. I don't even know how long I was down, to be completely honest. I was conscious. I didn't like knock myself unconscious or anything, but I was definitely in a lot of pain. And I texted my best friend at the time and was like, I think I fell because I'm on the floor. Can you come and check on me? Um, and she comes around the
What a
corner.
weird situation.
Yeah, she comes around the corner with like a to-go box from the dining hall with like just eating fries, and she looks at me and she's like, "Yeah, you're on the floor. I'm assuming you fell." And I'm like, "Can you help? Like, can you put down the fries? Like, let's get going." Um, so she helps me up, and I'm just like adrenaline at this point because I was like, I've got to turn in this painting. We have another class, like all this stuff, and I take another step, and I'm like, oh, this is not gonna happen today. I'm walking is done for right now. So she drives me home, and thankfully this was the last day before our spring break. And so she drives me home. I give I get her an Uber to take her back to campus because she drove my car back to my apartment. And I proceed for the next week of spring break to like be in bed, unable to move my legs. Nowhere in my mind, and I think it was because I was living on my own and like fully like supporting myself and like all those things. Nowhere in my mind was I was like, you should go to the emergency room and like be checked out because like this wasn't, you fell. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, no, I'm just gonna chill in bed. It'll pass. It's fine. And so like day 3 of like not being able to function, I finally call my mom and I'm like, I may or may not have fallen off a ladder. Like, can you come like help? And so we proceed to like go to doctors and like that sort of thing. And ironically, around that time, she had been to like a family reunion, and one of my like younger cousins had just been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hereditary. And she was like, Annie, I think all these things line up. Now you've fallen and like your joints are just like losing, or not losing, but they're like dislocating. They're just like not staying where they're supposed to. Plus all the
Mm-hmm.
GI symptoms I was experiencing, everything just seemed to like line up with what my younger cousin was going
Yeah,
through as
that makes
well.
sense.
And so we like pursue a geneticist appointment and all of those things. And so from that, it was just a whirlwind of doctor's appointments. Because then the geneticist was like, so you definitely have this. Because, and now since my diagnosis and his diagnosis, my younger cousin, I think there's like 5 of us cousins that have it.
Oh shit. Okay.
And then like, so that's on my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, like 3 people have found out that they have it.
Oh my god.
And so through like genetic testing and stuff, both of my parents were carriers for this disease, didn't know it, and had me and my sister. And like, they're both like, here you go, here's some great genetic conditions, right?
Yeah.
So just from seeing the geneticist and things, she was like, all right, this is a comorbidity, meaning like this is a condition that can also occur with it. Here's this condition that can occur with it. You know, like you show these signs and symptoms, just get it looked into.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through all the testing of all the co-conditions, and they're like, yep, yep, yep. And that was my big first sick moment. The second being the my main paralysis episode later on in life, where I was actually living at home and don't really know what happened. I'm really fuzzy on the details. I was not fully like with it.
You were just worried about yourself.
Yeah, and
Just,
I remember being like in the hospital. I had been taken via ambulance because I was like unresponsive or something.
oh
And
my god.
yeah, and
So,
it turns out it's more just like I woke up and was having paralysis, but I like couldn't speak and be like, I can't move. I was just like,
oh my god. That's scary.
yeah, my mom was like not my poor mom has been through so. And here's the thing, it was on her birthday. So
Oh
let me
no.
like document and formally apologize. Mom, I am so sorry. And so I'm in the hospital and like doctors don't know what's wrong with me, and I'm just like rigid and can't move. And so from there the periodic paralysis has kicked in and all of those things. That was probably, I want to say 2020, so maybe like a year after living at home that one started. And that's the main reason, or the main reason, that is why I am a full-time wheelchair user now, is partially because of the condition, largely in part due to the doctors not knowing what was occurring. And so they didn't know to like give me potassium to help raise that potassium level, and to like help my muscles out to like start moving again. And so I just stayed paralyzed for like 2 hours. I don't fully remember it felt so much longer to me, but they just didn't know what was going on. And so the longer you experience a paralysis episode, the more damage it can do to like your muscles and nerves and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And my legs just never have fully like woken back up, so to speak, since then. And so it's just been like a slow decline of like, all right, I'm using a walker now. Oop, can't do that. Like, time for a wheelchair. And then it's like time for a custom wheelchair because this is long term, like all of those things. So, yeah, a couple of big sick days, two main ones.
Well, it sounds like when you fell and then you were in bed, it seemed like it wasn't EDS because I think most EDS people they are hurting a lot, but they can move, or like they'll move if they have to. But it seemed like in your case you really couldn't move at all, and you needed something. And then it turns out that you needed potassium, and that helps you move more.
Yeah, so when I fell off the ladder, I do think it was more EDS because you're not aware of your spatial, you have really bad spatial awareness. And like I was already running into walls and like bumping into like doorways and like just always super clumsy. And they encourage you to wear like compression garments to help you. And
Mm-hmm.
there's like some crazy like long-winded term for it that I've never been able to like remember or pronounce. So I just try not, I just say like spatial awareness. But it helps you to like be aware of where you are in space. And so I definitely think like missing the ladder step was more so like looking back that I do have full awareness of, and like I do feel like my ankle gave out or like something like went weird with my legs because, and then when I fell I still felt everything. I just had hit my hip so hard that I just like I do think that I may have like, I obviously didn't fully dislocate it, but there's these things called like subluxations where it's like right on the verge of, I mean, it's like hanging on for dear life. So it's like, it's just hanging on by a thread, but it's not fully out. And that can happen with any joint. It just happened to happen by force and by ladder.
Pro tip to anyone out there: don't fall off ladders.
Don't. It, who knows what it'll cause? Like, seriously.
So I have here you're dealing that we're talking about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, then you also have mast cell activation syndrome, POTS. You mentioned before gastroparesis, and then intestinal dysmobility. While that is a lot for one person, it I read that it's really not the reason you have a wheelchair. That you're also there's damage due to, we talked about it before, hypokalemic periodic paralysis,
Yeah.
which is a temporary attacks of extreme muscle weakness or paralysis, which is caused by muscle cells that do not have the right balance of chemicals to work properly. You have the most common kind at the low blood potassium levels. So like we were talking about before, how you went from a walker to a regular wheelchair, and then regular wheelchair kind of suck a lot to like a more custom one. So
Yeah.
do you have a happy relationship with your wheelchair?
I really do. And I owe a lot of that to the fact that last year, maybe, yeah, last year, we just started a new year. So last year, Last year, I decided, I was like super pessimistic and I was like, screw the world.
Understandable.
Yeah, like I was like, screw the world. I have all these issues. Like, no one should have to deal with this many things at this age. Like, I hate this. Like, I wasn't like, I hate my life, like, all like melodramatic, but I felt very like, this is just unfair. And like, I
Yeah.
didn't want to deal with any of it. And so I came across, and like Instagram's a big part of like my chronic illness journey, kind of, because there's such a community on there. You can find like great people. I met my girlfriend through Instagram. Like, so there's so many different like,
There you go.
yeah,
There's hope in the world.
yeah. And it's like your window to the world and all of those things, especially when you're confined to like your bed. And so I ended up connecting with a disability coach. And prior to this, and I even told him in our like consult call, I was like, listen, I don't know if I believe in this stuff. Like, I go to therapy weekly. I deal with it. Like, I talk about my feelings. I don't know that you can really help me. I just want to, like, at least attempt to put effort into myself. So I'm doing this consultation call. And he was like, I get it. Like, I'm not going to fix you. I'm not going to, like, try and, like, help you with your feelings, that sort of thing. He's like, my goal is just to, like, get you to a better place with your disability in terms of, like, acceptance. And so I worked with him, and his name's Charlie Kramer. And I can't say enough good things about him. And, like, he really helped me to get to a point of understanding that, like, a wheelchair is more like a avenue to get out of bed. And
Yeah, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just looking up the guy. Yeah, I know him. I follow him.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, he's fantastic. He has disabilities of his own. And so, like, it wasn't just working with someone who, like, spouts all these things like, oh, you can do it. And, like, I believe in you. It was like, look, I get it. This is shitty. Like, we did not choose this life. We did not decide one day we were going to be sick. Like, this is hard work. But it's our choice to put in the work. And if you don't want to, good for you. Fine. Like, I can't change that. But he was like, if you do want to change that, like, I'm here to support that. And so, between, like, affirmations, and I rolled my eyes the first time he gave them to me. And I was like, I am not saying this every day. But I've gotten to the point that I'm like, one of them that has really stuck with me is, like, I am brilliant, because I have a lot of self-doubt, like, truly. And I just struggled a lot when I was in a wheelchair, and I am in my wheelchair, of physically being at a different level than other people. Like, they literally have to look down at me to make eye contact, and I physically always have to look up at people. And being 5'8", like, I was always like, I wasn't the tall friend, but for a while I was, like, one of the taller people. And so it was, like, a big hit to my ego to, like, suddenly be sitting everywhere I go, and, like, I felt very vulnerable. Like, you can't see who's coming up behind you, and, like, all of a sudden, like, you'll be in a checkout line at Walmart and someone's, like, moving my chair for me, and I'm like,
Oh my God.
oh, let's not do that. And I just, like, clam up and not say anything. So, like, it took a lot of time and, like, hard work to get to a place where I'm like, yeah, like, I love my wheelchair, and my custom wheelchair I love even more than the, manual, just, like, normal hospital wheelchair.
Yeah.
And so I was able to, like, fully customize it, which, like, really helps. And so, like, the paint on it is, like, white with glitter, and then it glows dark, it glows lime green in the dark, which is, like, I feel really badass. Like I'm like, I tell everyone, I'm like, yeah, it glows in the dark. Like, I just fit it into every conversation. If the wheelchair comes up at all, I'm just like, it glows in the dark, so it's fine. Like, it's fine. It glows in the dark. And so I have finally gotten to a place where I'm like, yeah, like, this is my life, and it's not going to change. Hopefully, medicine's evolving. There's now an approved FDA medication for periodic paralysis. I have yet to try it due to my mast cell activation syndrome, which causes me just to react to things randomly. I can be totally fine one day, and the next day it's like mashed potatoes could put me into anaphylactic shock. So it's like, medications are a big trigger where that's concerned. So, but anyway, so the wheelchair seems to be sticking around. So I've become friends. I've come to terms with it, and they're just simply my legs, and I'm cool with it. And I've gotten to a point where, like, if someone tries to move me or touch my wheelchair, I'm just like, no, you're not. You're not doing that. Don't touch me. Like, back off. Not happening.
So thanks to Charlie, you become a badass bitch?
I would say so. I would say so, definitely. Yeah. So, thanks, Charlie.
That's a pretty good review to put under his page.
Yeah. turned into badass bitch.
That's great that you were able to blossom, I guess, because
Yeah.
I'd seen his page before, and then and I see like a bunch of not even disability, but just life coaches,
Yeah.
and I just roll my eyes at all of them because
Yeah.
it's like, do they really help, or are they just trying to gouge you for money and
Yeah.
try to sell you something?
I
So you're like
definitely.
the first person I met that like, hey, the guy actually helped me, and not a sponsored ad.
Yeah, no, not a sponsor, just a happy client that, you know, we still like check in every once in a while. We follow each other on Instagram. I texted him the other day and I'm like, you won't believe what I just did. Like, like I went out and like all the, because I used to be so afraid to even just be like seen in my wheelchair because I just
Yeah.
like the big thing I was working up towards was my older sister was getting married at the time, is married now, and I was her maid of honor. And I'm like, I have not been out.
Hell yeah.
I haven't been out in the real world, and all these people that know me knew me as I was walking, and then all of a sudden they're gonna see me, and instead of walking down the aisle, I am going to be in a wheelchair and just be like, surprise, bitch! Like, I have a disability. Where before I could kind of like hide it. I was very like team like invisible illness, and the wheelchair really like
Yeah.
spoils it spoils that like bit
The
of
illusion
privilege.
of secrecy.
Yeah, because I definitely was like, like, yeah, I have like GI issues, or like, yeah, I have allergies, but like I'm good. Like, you don't know unless I tell you. And now it's just like the first thing they see, like, hello, I'm a wheelchair user. Like, and so it was definitely like, and literally rolling down the aisle, there were some, like, a couple of those. And I'm just like, yes, hello. I'm not going to acknowledge you. I'm just going to keep rolling down this aisle. Like, oh. So it was working up to that and like, how to answer questions because so many people, what's wrong with you? Like, what happened? Like, are you okay? Can I pray for you? And it's like,
Too late.
if you want to, but like, yeah, yeah, a little too late. Thanks. Like, I'm good. So, yeah, it's been interesting. But no, life coach definitely, at least in this case, was not a scam. Very, very helpful. I'd say life changing in some ways, but I don't want to be too like drink the Kool-Aid. But very, very selectively, they are incredible. And when properly trained and you personally have to like give 100%, because there were weeks too where I was too sick to do a session and I was like, look, I haven't done any of the homework prompts you gave me. I haven't been doing my affirmations.
Uh-oh.
I feel like shit, like I hate my life again this week. And he'd be like, cool, take the time. I'll meet with you next week. Like, shoot me a message. Like, you'll get out of this slump. And eventually I always would. And like, there was a time where it was like, I think maybe 2 weeks between a session because I was just like, I can't do this. I don't buy this right now. Like, I don't buy that this is going to get better. But I was eventually, I was eventually able to like, get with the program literally and figure out, you know, he can't truly do anything. It's me making the conscious choice to accept these things. So yeah, it was probably one of the best investments I'd say like in myself and able to
Okay.
accept where I'm at, and it's definitely like been a turning point just like in my personality as well because I was always a pessimist and like glass is half empty, like there's a crack on the side, we're not filling this glass up. And now I'm just like, let the glass break, like I don't care, like as long as the sun's shining, and even if it's not, it's behind the clouds. Like, not positive, like toxic positivity, because like I hate that and I fully agree, like this shit sucks. And
Yeah.
I think there's room to accept your circumstance and be like, yes, this does suck, but I'm still going to make the best of it. So it's a balance between the two.
It seems more of it that, yeah, someone can come into your life and like help you, but at the end of the day, it's really all about you and how you react to the situation because no one else can have the right words to tell you or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really the hardest part. I mean, I think to me, just the hardest part is really the accepting the situation, and then like, what can you do with it? So like, you got the wheelchair, so now you're out and you're going to weddings and
Yeah.
running over people's feet
Oh
and
yeah.
all that
Yeah.
good stuff. No, it's great. I want to make a joke that when people ask you like, "Can I pray for you?" and stuff, so I always say like, "Can you give me some money? Like, I need some. That'll help. Like, that'll make me feel a lot better."
Yeah. You know, for a while, and this is, I don't know if this is relevant at all, but I think it can be relevant. We can plug this in. So I'm very queer. I have a girlfriend, always have been.
Word? Okay. I'm kidding. I
I
know.
I have recently come to terms with the fact, coming out here first, haven't even made an Instagram post about it, but like
Really?
yeah.
You kind of mentioned it like 100 times on your
No,
Instagram,
no,
though.
no. This next part. That like I've
Oh,
come
oh,
to
okay.
terms with the fact that like I think I've gotten to the point, and I've wrestled with this for years, that like my pronouns are like she, they instead of just she, her. And so like whoop whoop, big announcement. But anyways, I have always jokingly told my friends like, you know, don't eat at Chick-fil-A because hello, like they don't support LGBTQ plus anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, but if you do, Venmo me, because we'll call it the queer tax. And literally, I have friend, and I joked about, that was like a high school Annie thing. And I joked about it with them, but still to this day, I will randomly get like $2 or $3 here or there from like random people, and they'll just like caption it like queer tax. And I'm like, I love this. Like, we're cool with this. Like, okay, so and so just had Chick-fil-A, but it's okay. I'll forgive it this time because I got a couple bucks out of it.
That's a great deal,
Yeah.
honestly.
And my sister does the same thing. She's like, I know I have to either donate to you or to the Trevor Project. And I'm like, yes, those are the stipulations. You can enjoy your Chick-fil-A, but make your donation. So, I mean, it worked
Have
out.
you had Chick-fil-A yourself?
I used to. I used to be a big Chick-fil-A person, and
Oh no.
I know, and I grew up, well, I grew up religious and like all of those things, and so it was like every Wednesday night after like our services, our whole like youth group would go and like get Chick-fil-A because like I don't know, they played Jesus-y music over the speakers, and it was just like the place to be, right? And no, so, and I mean, living in Georgia, you can't go like a block without seeing another one. I mean, you would think they have like regulations on how close they can be together, but no. I mean, I where I live now is the original very first Chick-fil-A ever.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like right down the street from me. And so it literally, there's times where we cannot get out of our house because the line for the drive-through is too long. And it just
Oh
fuels the
my God.
fire even more of like my hatred of Chick-fil-A. So
It's haunting you.
it is. It follows me everywhere. It does. But it works out. I get a couple bucks every once in a while.
Oh my God. That's a great deal. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get on to the next topic.
Okay.
You have a port that you said you had about 2 years ago, and it seemingly had changed your life. So like, how had it changed your life?
Yeah, so I have these bat wings right here. That's what I so lovingly call it because my well, so I'll backtrack. So I was diagnosed with POTS, postural pos
You don't even have to say it.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Just move on.
Yeah. I have POTS, and it
It's a horrible name. Before you begin, it's a horrible name. They need to change it
they
really
really
bad.
do. And I'll tell people like, yeah, I have POTS, and they were like pots and pans, and I'm like, no, like medical.
You need
But
to take out a pot like
they're
from
like,
your bag.
yes, I do
Like, you
actually.
carry them with you.
Yeah, I'll keep one in the back pocket of my wheelchair and be like, I have POTS. But so it affects the blood volume in my body as well as like blood pooling. So like especially being in a wheelchair and sitting all the time, your blood goes where gravity takes it, kind of, because my blood vessels aren't able to contract on their own. And it's like an autonomic dysfunction. And so it kind of, as well as gastroparesis, is an autonomic function. So things that should just happen on their own, like breathing, blinking, like all of those are controlled by like your autonomic system. And so my heart rate just like does whatever it wants to do. My blood pressure does whatever it wants to do. And I had gotten to a point where I had seen like 2 different cardiologists, and both of them were like, I've heard of patients like you. And I'm like, great, so can you treat me? And they're like, no, like, I'm not equipped for that. And so I was just like, listen, guys, like, we've got to get something going. Like, I'm struggling here. And the biggest thing is fainting. So it causes fainting when you change positions because all the blood rushes from your head, and your brain obviously can't function without blood circulation. And so I finally was able to find, through my geneticist, I talked to her and I was like, look, nobody knows what to do with me. Like, can you help?
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, right. And so Chick-fil-A has cursed me once again. Like, and so she got me in contact with a cardiologist, and he really just like was able to look at me, like he was able to look at me like there's a tilt table test where they literally, it's as rudimentary as it sounds. They strap you to a table and they tilt it. Like, talk about naming things. Like, it's the silliest thing, but literally you're on a flat table, and then they just like slowly tilt you, and then they wait for you to like pass out, and your heart rate like increases.
Sounds like a torture device.
It is, like, literally, that's another side tangent, but I feel like it literally is based off of like a medieval torture device. Like, just do it faster, and like I feel like you could kill somebody like easily.
With air conditioning?
Yeah. They do it to where like, so you have IVs in and stuff, and you're like being fully monitored. And then I thankfully, can't believe I just said that. I thankfully passed out while they were doing it, right? But some people have POTS but won't pass out because they do it so slowly. And so they like will spray this medication under your tongue to purposely raise your blood pressure, or to raise your heart rate and lower your blood pressure to see if you like react, because you have to meet like a certain criteria of like, I'm spitballing here, so don't quote me on it, but I think it's like 30 beats per minute increase, something like that. And they'll like get this stuff sprayed under their tongue and then just like pass out. And it's like, that sounds awful. Like, I can't. So yes, medieval torture device for sure. But so thankfully I was never even like strapped to the table. I was already hooked up to all the things, and they were like, all right, like if you can like transfer to the table. And so I'm sitting in this chair, and I have all the things hooked up to me, and I stand up out of the chair, and I just like pass out, and I just drop to the floor.
Oh my God.
And they just like kind of let me, because I'm already monitored, right? And so they're like, I finally come to, and they're like, oh, you're good. And I come to because they're like unhooking me from these things and like just ripping adhesive off my body, right? And so I'm like, what is happening? And they're like, oh, we're already done. Like, we were able to you have POTS. Like, you
didn't even do the test, and you already passed.
I didn't even do the test, and I passed. And one of the doctors was like, should we still like do it just to like be sure? And the other one like looked at him. He was like, we're not putting her through that again. So like, I thankfully like didn't get strapped down to the table, but a lot of people do, and that's like the main diagnosis. But so from there, I was put on medication to help lower my heart rate, help raise my blood pressure, and that just wasn't working. I could be in conversation with you like this, and oxygen level has a lot to do with it too, like oxygen saturation in your blood. And I would just like a lawn chair is what I would just like fall flat on my face, like totally flat, just be like passed out. And I would like stand up and then I would just be down. And so the medication just was getting to a point that it wasn't enough. And so the cardiologist that I finally got to that understood POTS was like, all right, I think we're going to like trial IV fluids because an increased salt intake helps you to retain fluids. And so that helps with like your blood volume and that sort of thing. And so a lot of times they run like saline, just like simple saline. And so I was set up with home health care, and they tried to do like peripheral IVs, so like through my hands and my arms and that sort of thing. And literally no one could get an IV, and my veins kept rolling and like all these things, which I didn't even know was a thing. But like I was in that mind state at the time where I was like, of course, even the thing that's supposed to help me, like
Of
I
course.
can't, my veins are now rolling. Like, what does that mean? Like, how is this a thing? Like, add that to the list. But that's a character trait of EDS. So, of course, they're all connected. And literally, we tried for about 6 weeks of like maybe twice a week for 6 weeks. A nurse would come out, try and get vein access, never did. So it got to the point that I was passing out like upwards of 5+ times a day. And
Oh my God.
yeah, I literally could not live my life. I could not function. I couldn't get out of bed. I could not sit up in bed. And so finally, my cardiologist was like, you know, we could do a PICC line, which is like something that's placed in your arm, but those aren't necessarily a permanent solution. They have to be replaced and like that sort of thing. And he was like, look, I think you're like, you're in this for the long haul. Like, sorry to tell you, but you're sick. So he was like, we're just going to go long term here. So we're going to place a port. So yeah, I have this little device implanted in my chest, and I have come to learn all the care for it. So before, a nurse would come weekly and access it, which just means like putting a needle in it and like sterile dressing, all of that. But then again, sister's wedding was coming up, and I had to go out of town. And I was like, I'm not going to have my port. Like, I'm not going to be accessed. Like, because you can only keep the needle in for like 7 days is like the maximum time they want it to stay in. And so my doctor was like, all right, time to begin. He literally was like, time to put on your big girl panties. You're going to learn how to like access this thing yourself. And I was just like,
Okay.
no. So I had to be trained to like look in a mirror, so everything's backwards, and like stab myself with this needle, and like, and I say it like it's this like horrible thing, but it's become second nature to me. I mean, I literally did it last night at like 10 o'clock. And so it was a big like thing at first, but it's become again like a life-saving thing for me. I used to be in the hospital all the time, like, and I felt so guilty because I was just taking up like yes, I needed it, but I also felt like there were people that needed like the room and the bed and the emergency room for like, what if there was a car accident? What if someone's like giving birth? Like all these like things, right? And so I was like, I'm here for saline fluid. If I could just have some salt water in a bag, please. Like, and so I, I was there like all the time. And so like now having a port and doing saline fluids and that sort of thing, I'm able to not take up those resources. I'm able to do it at home. And for a while, once I was on the saline, it was like that still wasn't enough, and I was having a really bad flare still. And so I was changed to like lactated ringers, which is like a different like mixture of solutions. So there's like saline, potassium, chloride, like I don't know, there's like other special things in it, right? And so your body absorbs it better supposedly, and that thankfully stopped the passing out. And so now I'm back on saline. But
Do you need the port because you're not able to intake it by mouth, or that you just need an excess amount that like you can't really do, or is it like part of your gastroparesis that you're having trouble digesting it? Because you have, there's there's so many like variables that I'm trying to think of with your
yeah,
disease that why you need a port. So why do you need a port?
yeah, so for me, the biggest reason is my gastroparesis. My body does not like fluids. So as I have a little cup that I like sip on to like keep my mouth like not super dry. But if I drink like liquids that don't have body to them, like so like a smoothie or something like that, and even those sometimes like can be a hit or miss. My body's just like, I'm not going to keep this down. And I'll just be like sick within like 5 minutes of like drinking something. It'll just be liquid.
Your body's like trying to kill you,
It
though.
really is. It really is. And it is it's like every day it's like, all right, what are you going to throw at me today, body? Like, let's go. Like, what you got? And so I've got to just like, I've gotten to the point where, yeah, most of my like fluid intake is through my port. I also, it's a, it's also a positive, and I have it for like IV medication that is really important for my mast cell activation syndrome, so that I'm able to like again stay out of the hospital. So it serves like a multitude of functions. So it helps with the POTS. It's because of the gastroparesis and not being able to keep up with an oral intake, and then the medication side with the mast cell, and then also nausea medication that helps with the gastroparesis as well. So it covers a wide span of things that I have, thankfully, and it helps out there. So it originally started for the POTS, but it benefits the gastroparesis and it benefits the mast cell. So it's kind of like 3-for-1 deal over here. Like it just worked out that way.
So it gives you a much better way of life.
Absolutely. Better quality of life for sure.
Yeah, I have here something that you need to do with your port that I took from your Instagram. So,
Okay.
for one, your dressing can't get wet.
Yeah.
You must avoid sweating, which is, I feel like it's really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Avoid letting your line dangle as it can get caught. Keep distance between you and animals. I think that makes sense. Review your protocol. You can't slack. Clean hands, gloves, alcohol wipes, 15-second count scrubbing, flush, green caps always.
yep. So there is like a little line attached to it all the time. I feel like an influencer putting my hand behind this line. But so if I was just to like let this hang out of my shirt, I have a dog and a cat, and both of them are like, ooh, like here's something fun to play
Yeah.
with. And so I typically like will double layer like I am right now and like just have it in between the layers. But yeah, so all the wonderful things that the port allows me to have a better quality of life, there's also this like terrifying side to it where like it increases your rate or increases your chances of having blood clots, blood-borne infections, all of those things. So if your dressing gets wet, moisture can get under there, bacteria can grow. It's a straight line to your heart, like because they put a catheter in through there, it sits right above. Your dressing can't get wet because if it does, then like moisture can get underneath it, technically, I think is the main fear. And any sort of like outside contaminant can then like grow bacteria. And the needle that is there can then send that bacteria to your heart because this sits like right, it goes through like, I don't know, some super important vein in your neck and then goes to like near your heart. And that's my super scientific medical term explanation. So you can get sepsis, you can get, a world of sepsis is the main concern, which is just like a blood-borne infection. And then in terms of like green caps, those keep the end of this little thing closed because then again, if you don't have this on, it can collect bacteria. And if the 15-second scrubbing is like, okay, so you take this off and then you have to like scrub it down with like rubbing alcohol and like kill what's ever on there before you then like flush it and like make sure that everything is good and clean. And like, for me personally, I always wear gloves when I work with it. And I think I choose to look at it as a blessing rather than a curse, because I try and, look at the bright side of it, even though there's like this weird little creepy thing under my skin.
Mm-hmm.
And weird downside, I'm very pale and my skin's very translucent. And the port that they chose to put in me is like neon purple. And so you can see it through my skin when I'm not accessed. And it looks like I just have like a hickey, just like right there, like all the time. And it's not a fun look.
I mean, your
But
girlfriend and you are getting freaky.
yeah, definitely. That's it. And but yeah, so and then pets, pretty self-explanatory. They can like pull on the line, and then that line's directly connected to the
Yeah.
needle. So I mean, if that thing gets
Yikes.
pulled, your needle's gonna. I mean, I've had an experience where like my needle's been bent before, and so
Oh
like
my
things won't
God.
flush through, and so then you de-access it by just like removing it. But if it's bent, it's like you have to like maneuver it
Oh
out,
my
and it's just
God.
like a nightmare. But yeah, so when you're accessed, you can shower, but you have to like jerry rig this whole like dressing cover. I choose not to shower when I'm accessed, and because I self access, I can just like de-access, pop in the shower, re-access myself. Whereas other people that like have like a nurse come, or they go to an infusion center or something like that, they'll typically like, I mean, I've seen they do make like actual covers for it that like is another like film over it that keeps it secure. But not everyone has access to that. So I mean, I've seen people with like duct tape in a Ziploc bag like go into
Yeah.
and I'm like, y'all are brave, because I would be so afraid of like the risks of that, because I choose to look at it as like I would rather be overly cautious and like anal about the way I take care of it than end up with an infection at the end of the day, especially because I'm the only one that like touches it and takes care of it. And so if I get an infection, like it's 100% my fault. Like it is. Like it would be something that I had done and messed up with. Although I have heard a few times that like people can have like just an infection in their body and then it can like attach to a port. So there are like cases where it's not fully the user's. It's not a user fault, but I definitely try to, avoid it as much as possible, because sepsis can be deadly. I mean, there's different stages to it, but it's definitely not something you want to have. I definitely know a handful of people that have had sepsis from their lines, just from like being in hospitals and hospitals handling it, because so many people aren't trained to work with a port. They're used to like peripheral IVs, and those there's a lot more like slack,
Mm-hmm.
where like the cleanliness is concerned. There's a long way for stuff to travel before it gets to your heart, where this is like right at your heart. Like it's just like right there. So like any little like piece of fuzz or like cat hair, like anything, it has to be like, nope, not allowed. So I definitely go a little overboard in terms of like my port care, but I'd rather overdo than end up in the hospital
Yeah,
because
same.
of it. But yeah,
It's super understandable. It seems like the repercussions are really, really high, and you will do anything to avoid that.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so two things I learned from the podcast is don't fall off ladders, and if you stop eating Chipotle, then you end up in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Chick-fil-A.
I mean, what did I say?
You said Chipotle.
Oh shit! Sorry, sorry, Chipotle. I love you, Chick-fil-A.
We love Chipotle.
Yeah. So before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to say? Promote any words of wisdom, the winning lottery numbers. The mic is all yours.
Ooh, winning lottery numbers. I don't know. 37's my lucky number.
Okay.
So maybe throw a 37 out there.
I'm not sharing
But
with you
yeah, I
if I
mean,
win. So.
I'd say definitely that mindset matters a whole lot, especially when you're dealing with so many conditions. Even if you're just dealing with one or two, that you are kind of in control of your own outlook. And at the end of the day, that when you're dealing with a lot of things that you don't have control over, the one thing you can control is how you handle a situation and your mindset. And so I definitely think that's really important. And then, yeah, also check me out on Instagram and my website and my work, all those things. Be super cool. I have a blog now, one of those people.
Yeah,
So,
you're
yeah.
you're an influencer. So, thank you, Annie, so
Oh,
much for giving me your time and expertise. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. And you can follow Annie in the description below. There'll be a link. I'll catch everyone next time. Bye.
bye.